That's a fact.
And indeed, good morning everybody. That is a fact. According to Katie Melua, there are 9 million bicycles in Beijing. In March of this year, there were 9 million users on LinkedIn, but we couldn't get a song to that. We're going to come back to that in one moment, but just first of all, welcome to everybody. It's great to see we have a full house, people from all over the place, including outside the UK, so everybody's welcome. You are on mute now, but at any time you may send in a question. We'll be monitoring those. We'll ask questions probably at the end, and maybe we'll take one or two as we go through. We will take no longer than an hour, but we're proposing a 45-minute slot today. It's really great to have you all here. So let's get started. As I said, yes, there are now 10 million users as of September this year using LinkedIn, and every 2 seconds someone new signs up on LinkedIn. But despite the volume of users, the majority of people on LinkedIn really are not, it is believed, capitalizing on the far-reaching capabilities of this fabulous social tool. So it's with great excitement here at Business Training Made Simple that we have Michelle Carville here. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So before Michelle gets started, a little bit about Michelle so you know who she is. Well, perhaps I'd best introduce myself first of all. I'm Elizabeth Boyd and I head up Business Training Made Simple. We run a series of courses, and Michelle indeed is one of the trainers on our social media courses, on our LinkedIn course, our blogging and Twitter. So we've had a relationship with Michelle going back some 10 years now. Michelle's had some 20 years in marketing and communications, and her career kicked off back in art school, and she was then at Saatchi's and through to professional services. And about 10 years ago, she set up her own company, Carville Creative. Michelle is very active on social platforms. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and has been voted top blogger on Business Zone for 2 years running. 3 times she's been voted one of the top 100 marketers on Twitter, and she's now a co-author of a new book which is actually out in March of this year, or sorry, March of next year, The Business of Being Social. So Michelle, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and hello to everybody out there. Good to have such a significant crowd listening to this webinar. So we're going to kick off. What we're going to be covering this morning is a number of things on LinkedIn. Obviously, when we run a full day's training course on LinkedIn, we spend 8 hours. So in 40 minutes or so, I'm going to give you snippets, but it should be enough. You should get some really juicy tips and tactics that you can take back and start thinking about how you can be leveraging that within your own profiles. So we're going to cover today getting to 100% with your personal profile and why that is important. We're going to look at the company profile, and the company profile has recently been refurbished. So if you've had a company profile that you haven't looked at for a while, we're going to have a look at the new things that you can do with that company profile. We're going to take a very quick look at LinkedIn apps and how you can embellish your profile with the use of apps. One of the apps is LinkedIn Events. There was news actually that the LinkedIn Events app was actually being removed, but it still seems to be there. So we'll have a look at that. Policies. We're going to have a quick look at social media policies and HR policies surrounding LinkedIn. And of course, a key point of LinkedIn is networking. You know, people often refer to LinkedIn as the Facebook for business. You know, when we go to LinkedIn, we tend not to go to LinkedIn for entertainment value, whereas we might do that on other social platforms. So LinkedIn is definitely all about business. So we're going to look at how we can network effectively on LinkedIn and indeed touch on creating a lead generation system for your business or indeed for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. So one thing I'd like to talk about before we actually start looking at what we're covering today is the whole approach to online visibility. I mean, when we look at being found online. When you think about products or services, or when we're searching for somebody or an expert in a particular area, we would probably go to our trusty devices, whether it's our phones or our tablets or our laptops or desktops, and go to good old Google and do some searching. And once upon a time, that was really the only place that we went to find people or products or services. And indeed, therefore, our website presence was and still is, a very important platform. But of course, things have evolved, and we don't just have a social presence now or an online presence via our websites. We can actually be found in a whole other host of ways, through maybe our blog or other content that we're creating and publishing and sharing out there on various platforms, through social media, of which there are numerous channels. We're just going to cover, LinkedIn today, and of course through paid-for advertising, sponsored advertising. Very often I speak with businesses and people that come on the training, and you've got to have a joined up approach to your online visibility. Doing great social media is fantastic, but fundamentally I do want you to keep in mind, what am I doing this for? What are my objectives? And that leads me on to, your objectives for LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has been proven out of this study here and numerous studies to be the most effective social network for lead generation. But before you start, then you really have to think, just as I say across all of these social platforms that we train on, you have to think about why you are doing this. And this applies for LinkedIn as well. What are your objectives for being on that platform? And ideally, you want that to tie in with your overarching business objectives. So you've got to have a very clear understanding, start with the end in mind. Therefore, you know exactly what you want to head for, and therefore you can plan, you can listen, you can do the research, you can do that analysis, what are insights have we got, what have we learned from doing those initial crucial steps, and then, and only then, are you really ready to engage. And very often, organisations jump in and engage without doing those former processes, and that's when things can get a bit icky and people start talking about, I'm not quite sure what we're doing with our profiles. So don't make that mistake. Make sure you do that planning, listening, analysis before you engage, because it's fundamentally important. So LinkedIn, over 10 million UK users now. I mean, as Elizabeth said, and as we came into Katie Melua talking about, 9 million bicycles in Beijing, well, actually there are over 10 million UK users. So there are 10 million reasons for you to be leveraging LinkedIn, hence why we've showcased this webinar with that title, because that's a huge network, and we know that people go to LinkedIn for business purposes. So therefore you have access to all of that talent and prospective new business partners that are sitting within the LinkedIn platform. A person signs up to LinkedIn every 2 seconds. So it is definitely the world's largest professional network. And as I said, people don't go there for entertainment usually. And interestingly, 61% of LinkedIn members are actually located out of the States. So I think sometimes we have a very US-centric view of Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest, because that's where they started. But actually, when you look at the demographics and the users behind some of these networks, then actually you'll find that a high proportion of them are outside the UK, or outside the US. So one thing that we're going to cover today is getting to 100%. Very often when I'm training, I always ask the question, who's on LinkedIn? And usually LinkedIn is the platform that most people are comfortable with. However, when I then say, okay, brilliant, so you're all on LinkedIn, or a high percentage of you are, how many of you have got your profile up to 100% complete? And then usually maybe 1 or 2 hands go up out of a room of 20 or 30. So whilst they're on it, you're not optimizing your profile. And effectively, all social platforms, if you think about it the other way, are big databases. They are huge databases full of lots of insightful data about people, and therefore they're databases, and therefore to interrogate those databases, the search engines within those very own databases are looking for clues. And just like Google has its algorithms and Facebook has its algorithms and Twitter has its algorithms, as does LinkedIn. So therefore, if you want to be found for social media expert or social media consultancy or social media trainer or whatever it is, those fundamental keywords that, you know, people type in when they're looking for your products and services, what do you want to be found for? Then effectively you want to be visible for those. And if somebody is searching for you via your name, or indeed they're searching for your competence or what it is that your product or service delivers, and your profile isn't 100% complete, then you are not going to be as visible as somebody whose profile is 100% complete. So the algorithms favour 100% completeness, because that sends signals to them that this is a viable place for me to go and find reliable advice. So not only does it look more professional, it actually has quite a significant function. So do make sure that you get up to 100% complete, and we'll be looking at some of the things that you need to do to get there, and it should only take about an hour, so it's not a big task, and it does look more professional. Going back to the business objectives, plan, listen, analyze, engage, make sure that you design your profile and all of those keywords that you populate your profile with to deliver on your objectives. If you want to be found for a specific area, or if you're on the platform to grow thought leadership in a specific area, well, make sure that you therefore tailor what you say in accordance with that. You know, really focus on what you're on that platform for. What do you want to be found for? And keywords. I'm not going to go into too much detail about keywords, but fundamentally the basics are keywords are that if you are, you know, you're wanting to be found online, when we are searching, whether we're searching on Google, whether we're searching in LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, we use a certain amount of words or a key phrase. Like I said, social media consultancy, social media training, etc. Those are the words that we would put in. And sometimes we might put a location in as well. So do consider those keywords. Make sure you know your keywords. If you have Google Analytics enabled on your websites, which you must have, I suggest, and if you haven't, get it. Google Analytics will tell you the keywords that people are using to find your site. So that's a good starting point. So getting to 100% complete, what you have to complete is your industry and location. Location might be really valuable on being found, you know, social media training Maidenhead or social media consultancy Maidenhead would bring up our location. An up-to-date current position with a description, 2 past positions, your education, and don't get hung up on, you know, oh, I don't want to be showcasing everything about myself. Remember, you are in complete control of what you put onto this profile. You are modelling this profile so it fits with your objectives. If it's not relevant to talk about which schools and primary schools and GCSEs and A-levels, etc. that you did, you don't have to go into that level of detail. If it's that you've just created, done some kind of course in interior design and that's what this is all about, then that would be your education. You know, you'd make sure that it was relevant. Your skills, a minimum of 3. A profile photo, and that profile photo isn't you and your mates down at the pub having a glass of wine, you know, which might be your profile photo on Facebook. This is your profile photo to the business persona. This is your business persona. This is how you would want to be, you know, positioned as if you were in a business meeting. And at least 50 connections. And if you haven't got any connections up there, we're going to have a look in a minute as to how you get those connections up there really quite seamlessly. So once you've done that, you will be 100% complete. You also get to claim your own targeted URL, your own web link. And you can see here the yellow highlighted version that mine is linkedin.com/Michelle Carville. And if I wanted to edit that to be /cat groomer or /social media expert, or if that was available, I would be able to do that. So that can either be on your name or indeed it could be keyword enabled. And you can change that. And very often when I look at people's profiles, what I see when it looks at their public profile is just a whole string of characters. So make sure that you claim your public profile and that you secure that for what you want. Very simple, but then you can use that URL. You can put it on your business. You can put it on your business cards. You can put it in your email footers. You can have it in your About Us, Meet the Team links. You know, here's Michelle over here, view her LinkedIn profile. These are links that you can use to share your LinkedIn personal profiles about your team and who you are. So make sure that you claim that. As I said, optimize that profile with relevant keywords based on what you want to be found for. You will see here that the yellow words I've got here populated are the keywords that I'm using throughout some of the profile. Now, I am a traditional marketeer. I could put in here marketing planning, strategic planning, you know, various things, but I am focusing this profile, which you can change at any time, remember, you can edit this at any time, on the keywords that I want to be optimized for right now. So be sure that you are optimizing your profile with relevant keywords. Hot tip here about your profile and when you are completing your profile. LinkedIn isn't actually that user-friendly when you are putting the content in. It doesn't give you lots of nice options to kind of tailor the text and bullet points and bolden things and italicize things, etc. So what I suggest you do is that you create your profile in Word and then you actually paste it in. It will still lose some of the formatting, but it's going to look a whole lot better than it did, you know, if you just big chunky bulk of text. Because when we read online, we're looking for, you know, bullet points and broken up text. So you want to make sure that you are making your profile as user friendly as possible. Use LinkedIn as a database. We've all been there. We go to a meeting, we take a business card, and we put that business card in our bags or our pockets, and then 6 months later we're cleaning things out. We come across that business card and we think, oh, who was that person? Okay, it happens. It happens a lot to all of us. And LinkedIn can be a wonderful database. Every time I am due to meet somebody or every time I am you know, I have met somebody or we've exchanged cards, I will say, you know, I will go back and I will connect with them. And the great thing about it is that if I make that connection on LinkedIn, it keeps your LinkedIn connections alive. Because should that person move on or should you know, move on to another place of work, I get notified about that. I don't lose that connection. I get notified to say, hey, Bex has moved on to XYZ company. Actually, why don't you send her an email to congratulate her? And hey, it might be that Bex has moved on to a company I've been trying to build relationships with for a while, and now I've just been notified that a good contact of mine has moved into an area that could be really useful for me. So hey, yeah, let's have that coffee. So it's a living, breathing database. So you can utilize it that way. And the key thing there is that if you are going to connect with someone, when you make those connections, be sure you connect with context. Research has shown that when you give people a reason to connect on LinkedIn and you change that awful standard template message, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn, which is awful, by the way, and if ever I receive that, I just think it's automatically spam, then effectively research has shown that you're 76% more likely to get that connection. So give people a reason. Hi, we met at XYZ event. It was great talking to you. We discussed blah, blah, blah. I'd love to meet up and have that coffee. In the meantime, let's connect and let's fix up a date. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday? Which date suits for you, etc. So connect with context. Give them a reason as to why they want to connect with you, and also remind them as to the context of where you met. Groups can be really useful. The only thing I would say is that there are groups about groups. You know, there are groups about cat grooming. I've been in there and tested. So, you know, when you go into groups, the only thing I would say is approach how many groups that you can really engage with caution, because you can actually join up to 50 groups in LinkedIn. So my advice is to have a look, maybe join quite a few that seem relevant, but then really, you know, be in research mode and be in research mode, sussing out how that group works. Think of the offline kind of networking scenario here. If you were to go to a networking group, you would very quickly pick up whether or not this group is going to be useful for you. And you know, if you've got to get up at 6 o'clock every morning to go every week to go to this group, and you've got to spend 2 hours and you've got to showcase various bits and talk and meet to people, and it's not really a group where you're going to get much out of, that effort isn't going to be rewarded, so you're going to stop. And you will go through a process where you suss that out. And effectively, that's what you have to do online. These groups are effectively networks. They're online networks, so you know the effort is less than going to the physical ones, but it's still effort. You've still got to participate. You've still got to be visible. You've got to be on the radar and grow that authority so that, you know, you are networking and meeting great people and leveraging this rather than just being passive. So think about, again, objectives. What do I want to get out of a group? Who do I need to be following? Who are my influencers? Who do I need to be talking to? Which groups are they in? And let's start talking to the relevant people and building strong networks and strong groups. And of course, if a group doesn't exist, you can create your own group. You can create your own group and leverage that as your own networking group, or indeed use it as an intranet. So groups are really quite useful. LinkedIn answers. This is probably the area that when we're in training, we ask people, you know, about are you using LinkedIn answers, which is like a Q&A process that LinkedIn manages across a whole number of sectors. It breaks things down into marketing questions, internet questions, business development questions, pharmaceutical questions, recruitment questions, admin questions. I mean, it really is very granular how far this gets broken down into. And you can search people, updates, jobs, companies, and you can search answers. You know, you can search answers just as you can search groups. And so therefore, have a search in answers and see if you've got any questions or you've got a specific expertise, have a search in answers and just see what comes up. You'll be surprised because those answers are coming out of groups, they're coming out of individuals. This is a great research tool for you to use to see what is happening around your space. And indeed, you will also see when you search answers, certain people are building themselves as experts. They are offering solutions, answers to the questions that people are raising, and therefore they are raising their profile. They are becoming the thought leaders about whatever it is that they talk about. So if indeed your objective is to be a thought leader in a specific space, you've got to put the answers in, so you've got to put the time and effort into wanting to do that, to grow that. But effectively, if you answer a question and people think that was the best question answered, the correct answer to the question, then you get voted as people can say this was the best answer, and you start to rank up and you become that expert in the field, and that might be, you know, your objective. And if it is and you succeed in that, then LinkedIn Answers has helped you. But it's a great research tool as well, so do have a look what's going around in the questions that are being asked. The company profile. So the company profile, once upon a time, is, and still happens, if enough people join LinkedIn with the same, saying that they work for the same company, LinkedIn automatically created a company profile. And very often people say to me, oh, we can't access it, we don't know who the admin is, etc. And there are ways you can get in contact with LinkedIn if you get stuff, but we cover lots of that on the full day as to how you do that. But creating a company profile, if you are an admin of a company, you can create a company profile for it. And effectively, why would you have a LinkedIn company page? Well, your LinkedIn company page is more than just, you know, a showcase or a mouthpiece for the business, which is important because it is a perfect mouthpiece for the business. Instead of individuals sharing status updates via LinkedIn, the company can share its updates via LinkedIn. So if the company has got news or has a PR thread or a in the press thread, this might be a place where you choose to share the company news to all of the people that follow you on LinkedIn. So company reach, join up your employees. If you've got an employee base of 5 or 10 or 100 or 1,000, you can automatically see that seeing how each one of your employees and who they are connected to and connecting everybody absolutely amplifies the opportunity for everybody to be leveraging everybody else's connections. I worked with one IT company where they joined up their business development team and just got them working together. And it was amazing how each one of them had connections that the other one was trying to get to, you know, in different companies. So it was, once it was joined up, everything became very visible, and therefore the network grew, and therefore the opportunities to you leverage your contacts to get to the people that you want to know grew. So your employees are likely to be out on LinkedIn anyway, so you can utilize them as conduits back to the company profile. Because if somebody looks at, you know, Mark Thomas, who works for Made Simple Group, and they look at his profile, they will then see Made Simple Group. It will be a live link that will drag everybody back to what is Made Simple Group, and on Made Simple Group you can showcase all the products and services. You can now promote in detail. You know, you can promote in detail relevant keywords for all your products and services. You can add various spotlight approaches for every product or service. You can add videos, you can add ads, you can get your customers to post recommendations about that product or service that your company delivers. You can get people to follow your company page. You know, so Business Training Made Simple has its own LinkedIn page. And if you have a look at that, you will see that, you know, everything is joined up. We showcase all the different training courses as individual services for the LinkedIn page. So again, it's another base for equity, for making sure that you are showcasing what you are. And people in LinkedIn then don't have to go elsewhere. They can just find everything they need to know about you via the company pages. And of course, joining it all up. Very often, I was speaking to, there was a law firm who came to our social media training course last week, and effectively they were saying that, you know, they have 500 employees, and one of the frustrations they've got is that some of the employees, when they say where they work, the name of this organization, there are about 12 different organizations with a very similar name on LinkedIn, so not all of the employees are actually linking to the right company page. So that's a challenge. Okay, somebody looks for a real great thought leader or one of the partners, and he's linked off to another business that is completely irrelevant, isn't good for the brand, is it? And it's certainly not growing thought leadership. So making sure everybody has a boilerplate, a little sentence that says, this is what we say when on your LinkedIn profile, this is what we want you to say when you say you work for Business Training Made Simple or XYZ company. And it can just be really simple, but you're giving them absolute clarity of the name they need to be using, you know, which has to be specifically linked to your company page, the exact title, and then maybe a couple of keywords, you know, the leading online training provider, etc., etc., whatever those little keywords are. So you can leverage that and make sure each employee has that boilerplate or boiler sentence even to showcase your company and make sure it's a joined up approach. This is an example. Hubspot are a wonderful business that, you know, I respect greatly. This is a B2B service. You know, they provide marketing automation software and solutions for businesses, and B2B. And you may not be able to see that number there, but, you know, they've got over 20,000 people following their company page, their company profile on LinkedIn. And it's quite interesting because if you look at what they're doing on LinkedIn and what they're doing on Facebook, it's very similar, but very differently positioned, you know, positioned completely different overly on Facebook, you know, where images and conversations and a much more human approach is delivered, whereas here on the profile page on LinkedIn, it can be much more business focused. And you can see that for every product and service, if you go and explore here, you can see for every product and service has a video, it has recommendations, it has call to actions. It's a fantastic gateway into finding out everything you need to know about a business. And having that integrated approach, you know, being visible online, it's no longer just about your web page. So here you have the equity to be able to optimize LinkedIn from a company perspective. Your connections. Let your contacts know they can connect with you via LinkedIn. So remember, going back to the beginning, you need 50 connections to connect with LinkedIn. And you can add your connections. You can very simply upload your connections by a simple import your desktop email contacts. There are nice little images that say upload Google Mail, upload Outlook, etc. And it's a really simple process. And what will happen is you save your contacts as a CSV file, you upload them, and it goes through a kind of, it reconciles. These people are on your list. These people via that email address are on LinkedIn. Connect, 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 connect. Who now do you want to go down and connect with? So it's a really simple process to get all of your database, all of your contacts up to LinkedIn and connected. It might be that you want to connect with all of your customers via LinkedIn. It might be that you want to connect with all of your contacts. Whatever it is, whatever data you want to connect with, there is a really seamless, simple process to be able to do that. Recommendations. Recommendations. I often talk about the fact that, we are in the recommendation generation. We all read reviews. 90% of us trust what others say more than we trust what the brands and businesses say. So effectively, getting recommendations is really useful. And here is a simple process for you to be able to get recommendations. You literally select those people, that little yellow button there that's highlighted, it says in, and that's your LinkedIn button. When you go to the recommendations tab that you'll find in your profile tab, you go to recommendations, it will say who do I want to get recommended, what do you want to be recommended for, decide who you want to ask. If you hit that, all of your connections will come up, and you can just go down that list and go tick, 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 tick. And at any one time, you can invite 200 recommendations. So you've got quite a lot of scope to get some decent amount of recommendations back. And those recommendations, of course, not only look great on your LinkedIn profile, but you can leverage them in other ways. You can snip those, you can cut and paste them, you can use them for your marketing materials, you can use them on your web pages, you can use them in a number of ways. So be sure that you are asking for recommendations because they're really very useful, and people trust and believe them. And it looks impressive if somebody goes to your profile and you've got all these recommendations from valued, independent people that you've worked with. That's a big plus. Fundamental, don't spam or sell. Don't spam or sell. I mean, the social networks are networks. If I went into an offline networking scenario and I walked into that room and I said, like me, which is what we expect people to do with our Facebook pages, or I went up to somebody and just started thrusting my business card in front of their face, or a pamphlet with the latest offer of 25% off if you come and buy this by Friday, then people would just think I was strange, really weird. That's not networking. That's not getting people to know you, like you, and trust you. Social networking is networking. These are conversational channels, and you really have to keep bringing your mind back to the offline world and being very human. This technology is powerful, but you have to be human with it and have integrity. So do not spam or sell. The amount of groups that I have just dropped out of because all people want to do is spam and sell to you. It's not the way to go about things. There is a lead generation system that you can work very, very well, and we cover that on the full day LinkedIn training course, but that isn't about spamming or selling, okay? Directly spamming and pushing. It's about really engendering and building relevant and targeted relationships. And I always talk about the most effective part of marketing is when it is targeted. So we want to be as targeted as possible. Connect with those that you know, and indeed leverage your connections to make an introduction. Far more powerful. And you can see that LinkedIn here has this get introduced through a connection. And, if you've got a great connection, there are different ways of doing that. And again, that's part of the system that we talk about. But using your contacts to get you through the door is effectively what networking is all about. So again, apply your offline networking approach to online networking. Often we get asked, what do the 1, 2, and 3 symbols, when I'm on LinkedIn and I see somebody's name and it's got a 1 or a 2 or a 3 against it, what does that mean? And here you can see that effectively we're looking at a screen here, and the number 1 is the people, your connections. When you see somebody with a connection with a number 1 next to it, they are your connection. You are directly connected. 2 degrees away means they are friends of friends. So each connected to one of your connections. And 3 degrees away gets a bit further, reach these users through a friend and one of their friends. But look at the amplification of the reach. You can see how quickly things can swell. So, 300 or so connections can get you into 6 million connections. That's powerful. That's why we say, 10 million reasons to connect on LinkedIn. There is pretty much everybody that you want to connect with in a very targeted way, building yourself a profile of who do we want to connect with, who are the people that influence my business, and then finding them on LinkedIn and networking and tooling that in a very effective and targeted way is indeed possible. I'm a complete believer that there is nobody that you cannot talk to. If they're on LinkedIn, you can get a connection. You can make a connection. So that is very, very powerful. LinkedIn apps. Not many people know about LinkedIn apps, and LinkedIn apps are quite useful for, enhancing your own profile. So you can go to linkedin.com/apps, APPS, and then up will come this page, and you will see a number of apps. And you can bring your WordPress blog, if you've got a WordPress blog, through to the app. There is a blogging app that you can bring through. Creative portfolio display that you can just see, hanging off the slide there at the bottom left. If you are a creative, and you've got lots of visual stuff, or you have a very visual business, then effectively you can add that. Think about LinkedIn. It's a very text-heavy profile page, isn't it? So you can embellish that using these apps. Similarly, Slideshare, which is like a social network for PowerPoint presentations. You can bring in Slideshare presentations, videos, all sorts of stuff can be included through the app. So have a look at the apps. Events. This events tab, I was very upset when I read a piece last week that they're removing the events application, because it's a very powerful resource. You can not only see what events are happening that people are promoting in LinkedIn, but actually it's a little mini process for inviting your contacts to any event, and it's really very smart. So hopefully they're replacing it with something even smarter, and there's a reason. I have put a call into them, but they're not so speedy at getting back to people. LinkedIn. Twitter, brilliant. LinkedIn, slower, shall we say. Anyway, polls. Polls is another thing. Asking questions is powerful, isn't it? When we ask questions, that's a great way of getting engagement. And I've been working with a lecturer who is asking questions about which modules he wants he's set up a group, and he regularly asks polls into that specific group within LinkedIn as to which module they want to work on in their next lectures. So, he uses this all the time for those things, but there'll be things you want to ask your audience and run polls on. And the beauty of this is you can then take that content, blog about it, tweet about it, create an ebook about it. This is giving you some insight, some research. So look at polls, very useful, and again, another way of engaging your audience and not being passive on LinkedIn. This is creating that event. You can see that you can put a name of the event, when the event's going to be, time zones, the venue, or it's a virtual event. We often promote these webinars via LinkedIn events. And you can put a logo up there, and you can create events, and then it goes into which audience do you want to promote it to, into all your groups, etc., or just your contacts or segments of your contacts. It's really quite sophisticated. So have a look at how you can go about leveraging that yourself. And as I say, keep an eye on this, the fact that they're removing it. Let's hope they're replacing it with something else. Lead generation. Well, as I said, on the full day training course that we do, the LinkedIn full day training course, we actually do go into detail about how to create a LinkedIn lead generation approach. It's a system that we've created and tested, and with very successful outcomes. So we're going to be sharing that for the full day. But there are other ways that you can generate leads as well via LinkedIn. There are ads. Going right back to the beginning of this session, do you remember we looked at online visibility and the pay-per-click versions, and there are ways that you can pay to be visible. And the beauty of LinkedIn, one of the beauties, is that you can get very granular with LinkedIn. There are different stages, different packages of LinkedIn. You can have, we're talking today about the free version, the freemium version of LinkedIn, which is, in my eyes, still a very powerful resource. But of course, there are other areas of LinkedIn. There is a business development LinkedIn. There is a job seekers LinkedIn. There is a headhunters LinkedIn. So depending upon what you're doing, if you really need to send lots of in-mails to people, which is where you can send an email to somebody, whether you're connected to them or not, if you want to go via that way for your lead generation, I think we've developed a different system that's better. But, if you want to go via that route, or if you are a headhunter as a recruiter, it's highly likely you'd have one of the paid-for versions where you get access to a lot more advanced search opportunity and indeed a lot more interaction without having to be connected. So there are different ones. So today, the point here is that we are talking about the free version. So therefore, you might want to drive some ads to a specific landing page, and you might want to target just, IT managers in Hertfordshire. And you could do that. You could do that. What I've heard from LinkedIn ads is that, conversely to what I've found in Facebook ads, where in Facebook, you can really test for quite a low budget. We've tested various things with clients with LinkedIn ads, and you can be very specific and very targeted. So if you want that, you can get to a specific audience, but the actual click-through rate might be quite low. But, play around with it, because that all, again, depends on what your ad says, your ad copy, where you're sending them to, what the incentive is. There's so many different criteria about why an ad performs well or not. But I do know that the actual minimum ad spend, minimum cost per click, is about $3. Whereas on, Facebook, we've been able to look at campaigns for 26 pence, per click. So it does have its benchmark. So you have to think about driving ads, and indeed, where are you driving them to? The amount of times I've seen ad campaigns where people have complained about, it's not working, and I've looked at those ads and thought, well, the copy could do with some work, but where are you sending them to? You get to the landing page, sometimes people are sending people to the home page. I mean, that's not going to work. So actually, play around with LinkedIn ads. There's a lot of dimensions about what's going to work and what isn't, and it's down to you to test and measure. And if it's not working, then try something else. Targeting your relevant audience, you can search for people. You can find relevant groups, again, befriending people via your networks, etc. Really honing in and targeting who you want to get to. I needed to get to somebody, and I didn't have any connections to them in my network, to anybody within that company. I was trying to speak to somebody at Facebook, and indeed what I did then is went to the Facebook company page and looked at all of their employees to see whether or not, because when their employees come up, of course, what comes up? All those wonderful little numbers, 1, 2, and 3. And I saw that actually a number of their employees had a number 2 next to them. So what was I then able to do was go to that employee that had the 2 next to them and see who it was in my network that was actually connected to them. And as it was a great connection of mine, and I was able to say, hey, do you know blah, blah, and blah at Facebook? I really want to get an introduction. Can I drop your name, or can you introduce me? So there's different ways of doing things, searching and targeting your networks, either through the people you know, or indeed going to that company page, seeing who the employees are, and then seeing how you're connected. And of course, groups. Join groups, but very often when we think about groups, we join groups that are in our sector. The amount of accountancy practices that join accounting groups with other accountants. Now, great, that might be networking, it might be about thought leadership, they might be sharing advice and ideas about something. Fabulous. But also don't forget the groups where your prospects are. You want to go to where your prospects are, and maybe a lot of your competitors aren't there. And therefore you can go there and you can start talking and sharing and bringing your advice to the table into a very targeted group. So again, it's not about selling, it's not about pushing, it's not about spamming, it's a consultative process, you know, very much a consultative sales process, getting people to know you, like you, trust you. And that means you're going to have to give away information, you're going to have to share, you're going to have to prove that you are actually of worth and earn attention by the value of what it is that you bring. And lots of organizations are very, very, very uncomfortable with that. But you look at the ones that are excelling on social, and they are all sharing. They're all sharing, they're all giving their expertise and growing their authority and getting growing that authority by giving, because you've got to prove you can do what you say you can do. So social is a wonderful place for that. So to wrap up, okay, we have covered today things, all of these various areas. Creating a boilerplate for all your LinkedIn employee overviews, that little boiler sentence to make sure it's all joined up, make sure the company name is consistent across all your employees. You want to make sure they're all connecting to the right company page. Consider some social media policies. You know, what happens with, from your HR perspective, what does HR say at the moment about social media and about LinkedIn? If you want people to say something, when you work, you say, if you have a LinkedIn profile, when you say you work for XYZ company, this is what we want you to say. And build that into your policies. Make sure that that is something that you're doing. And you know, everybody now is having to look at their social media policies. Everybody. If you haven't got them, you need to get some in place. Be sure that you get to 100% personally, because A, it looks better, and B, it will help with your online visibility and ensure that you are found for what you need to be found for. And indeed, think about the company page, think about the company profile, create that company profile and complete product, service and pages. There is no limit to how many products and service pages you create. So if you think about all the content that's on the website and all the different things that you provide, break that down and showcase them, and showcase videos, showcase clear call to actions, showcase wonderful keyword rich and compelling content about everything that you do. Safeguard passwords. Interesting, but you know, very simple. But the amount of times I hear that we can't access our page, we can't access our profiles because the person who set them up has now left and we don't know what the passwords are, and you can't access them. Make sure you safeguard those passwords. If you know, I've been working with a firm, and one of the partners has you know, unfortunately passed away, and it's been about 6 months and we still can't get the profile off, you know, LinkedIn. So, you know, you've got to send in certificates and various this and that. You know, you've got to validate why you want a profile to be removed. However, had they secured the passwords, you can do that in a heartbeat. So make sure you're securing the passwords for all of the team that are relevant. And, of course, make sure that you approach LinkedIn with clear objectives. Target your profile in line with what you want that profile to perform as, okay? So it might be that it's just about you and your brand and it's your personal brand, or it might be that you want to be known as a thought leader in a specific area. And if it is, then make sure you are targeting with all the relevant keywords and all the compelling proposition around what it is that you want to be found for. Okay, so I think that's wrap up from me. Over to Elizabeth, because I think we've had some questions.
Yes, we have indeed. That's been fantastic, Michelle. Even I picked up a load of tips having been on your courses before. Even, you know, it never ceases to amaze me. But anyway, let's take a few questions here. First one we have from Frosa. Frosa says that she set up a company page for her boss. They have a company page for the business as well, and she's not sure how to bring the two together.
Okay, well, I mean, this goes right back to, I suppose, objectives. The objective, the company page for his personal profile, you know, what is that about? Is he the thought leader for the business? And if he is, then he will be sharing his knowledge and his advice and connecting with relevant people. The page for the business is really where you want all the people within the business to connect with. And also, it's very unlikely that well, it's not very unlikely, it doesn't happen, that on your boss's personal profile, he won't be able to showcase all the products and services that your business provides in the same way that you can do so on the business profile. So I would say flesh out the company profile because it's great for search engine optimization value as well. So flesh that out, make sure that you are selling a compelling proposition. Think about the voice of the business because the voice of the business owner can be very different to the voice of the business. And, you know, if you have a newsletter, a generic newsletter, then that kind of news can go through the company profile, whereas your boss will be talking about his expertise, a project he's working on. It can be very different. So think about the objectives for both and make sure that you've got a very clear content pipeline as to what you want to create for each of those pages. But good question.
And I guess he would be then just one of the contacts within the company.
Absolutely.
So showed clearly in that way, and they can link to and fro in that way.
He would follow that page.
Excellent.
As would all employees.
Excellent. Okay, so let's take another one here from, let's have a look, Stephen. Stephen recently upgraded to the paid version. I'm not sure we can tackle this one here. Anyway, recently upgraded to the paid version after a month's free trial. Is he better sticking with the free version for the time being?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you are getting out of the paid for version, if you're enjoying some of the benefits of advanced searching and being able to send emails, and, you know, the key thing here, Stephen, is measure. You know, if you're sending emails via that, you know, via that paid for version and it's costing you £60 a month or whatever, it's, you know, £20 a month, whichever, I don't know which package you're on or which version you're in, but, you know, if it's working, then you've got your return on investment and maybe stick with it. If it isn't, then you might want to think about, well, what's the objective? If it's not working and I'm not seeing any return on investment, I might as well go with the free version and go around things in a different way.
Just before we get on to the next question, just in case some of you have to leave before we end, letting you know that there is a special offer on our our LinkedIn full day course, and we will follow that up in email, but if you are staying to the end, you'll see that firsthand. Okay, let's take another question here. Yeah, thank you very much, Humphrey, for that great compliment. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying that. Saw Humphrey this morning.
Well done on the climb, Humphrey.
Right, okay, another question. Okay, we are rebranding as a company. Can I change the name of the current company page without losing followers?
You can, but you have to go through a process, and in LinkedIn FAQs you will find a link to what that process is, and in fact what we can do is find it for you and send it through to you. So we'll do that for you, Bex, as to how you can do it. It's not as simple as just on Twitter. It's really simple to say change your brand and just say, hey, we're rebranding to this. Slightly different with LinkedIn, but we'll send you all the relevant links.
Thanks, Bex, for that one. Let's see who we've got next here. We've got a question here. Right, this is from Stephanie. No one I'm connected to is connected to the woman I'm interested in talking to. How do I resolve this?
Well, again, you know, this was kind of the issue I had. So what I did was I found out the woman that I wanted to connect with, I knew the company that she worked with. So I went onto LinkedIn, I went to the search bar, I typed in the Facebook in the company name, and then up came all their employees. And so then I was able to see that 1, 2 or 3, whether or not there were any connections. And then from those connections, I was able to see who it was that I did know that was connecting both of us. So sometimes you don't know who's connected to who, and if it's not very clear in your own connections, then go to their company page and work it that way.
Okay, we've got questions coming in left, right and centre here, so just trying to pick another one here that we can answer today. Let's have a look. No, can't do that one because half the question's gone. Man who's accountant, you might want to send that in again. It's only got the first line of your sentence, your question. Right. Here we are. Can a personal profile photo be a logo which is linked to a company profile? Can a personal profile photo be a logo which is linked to a company profile?
I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, Sophia, really. I've never seen, I mean, the key thing about LinkedIn, it's about, you know, when you have a personal profile, it's your personal profile, so it's you. People want to see the whites of the eyes. When you say where you work, so, you know, for example, I mean, you could do, because I don't think they have any recognition software that says, hey, this isn't a photo. But I've never seen that happen. So when it's you know, usually on LinkedIn, that profile photo is a person. And then when they say where they work, that links through to the company profile. So you might want to test it. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to do it, because what my advice would be that you would have the company profile that is the company profile, which is a much richer place, and then the individuals that all connect to that company profile, rather than doing it that way. Before company profiles were very popular, then people, I think, did do that, you know, but, you know, we're talking about 4 or 5 years ago when LinkedIn really started and people wanted to leverage personal pages, personal profiles for company benefit. But it's really moved on a lot since then. So I would suggest that you run 2.
Okay, we've got time for just one more. Prakash, thanks. We've got the rest of your question in now. So you're saying your wife lost her job in an accountancy practice with a few clients, and you have an accountancy practice with a few clients. I would now prefer to get a job as an employee contractor, but I'm a little unclear now how I should best use LinkedIn.
Well, Prakash, there are job searches on LinkedIn. You can, you know, just as I said in that search bar, you can search people, companies, you can search jobs. So have a look at the jobs that are out there. The other thing, of course, is there is a job seeker package on LinkedIn. When you upgrade to LinkedIn, we're talking about this free version. There's quite a lot you can do with that free version on your own personal profile. At the bottom, you know, you have an option of saying, why are you on LinkedIn? I'm looking for jobs and I'm looking for this. And again, going back to my point of how would you tailor your profile, you would tailor it as all your expertise, but I am hungry for this, I'm looking for this, and this is, you know, this, I'm in the market for X, Y, Z. And you would then target relevant people that you thought would be useful. You would go to accountancy practices in the location that you want to do. You can find them, you can search them, and you would follow that company and indeed start up a conversation with them. Look at what groups they're in, go into their groups, see if they've got any places available, contact the managing partner. There's heaps you could be doing with the free version, but there is also a job seeker version that you can, you know, that gives you more added benefits to that. But I would say there's a lot you can be doing, Prakash, on LinkedIn in the job search area.
And of course, one key thing which Michelle touched on before is to have that profile 100% complete with the relevant data that these people that may be searching for your skills will relate to. Okay, I think that that really brings us to the wrap up. There should be one more slide there, I think. Can we get to the next slide? Sorry about that.
No,
oh, okay.
There we are.
Okay, fine. Sorry about that. That was my little finger on the pulse there. Okay, so thanks so much, Michelle. That was absolutely excellent today. We've had loads of comments and compliments on the presentation coming in, so I'm glad everybody enjoyed that. Just a reminder that I said earlier, so our next full-day training course on LinkedIn is on the 16th of January, and for anyone attending today's webinar, we're giving you a £30 discount, which is more than we've ever done before, but we were in a jolly good mood, and you know, we're just so passionate about LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn that we'd love to share it further. So you've had a great taster today. If you book before the 31st of December for this one in January, we will give you a £30 discount, and we'll send you out a code by email, by follow-up email, so you can enter that as you book in online. Okay, just some more compliments. We thought another question came in. Well, I think that wraps us up today. Thanks very much. We'll see you again on the next one, and don't forget, free First Thursday every month, free First Thursday webinars, different topics every time. So let us know if you want to keep on receiving our updates, and we'll keep you informed.
Thank you. So let this happen, because other people might want.